Hello, everyone. That's right. It is time for the live stream. I just realized I forgot to spike my tea the way I normally do, but I will have to live with that for a little while now. That is okay. You split a tooth, Jay. I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks. Dental work is never fun. Always, always sucks. Ugh. If it makes you feel any better, dental work is what made me an otaku. That's a whole other story. But that is technically it. Johnny, I'm curious, what AutoCAD work are you doing? CAD work is a very interesting and fun thing, which reminds me, I have a question for everybody for later on tonight. I need to make a decision, and I'm counting on all of you to help me make this decision. Normally, I'm pretty good about making those decisions on my own, but I need the wisdom of the crowd on this. But yeah, it's been a pretty good week. Otakon Online was this weekend, or is this weekend, I suppose. And I had a panel at Otakon Online, which was cool. I broadcast a panel that I will then rebroadcast out here on the YouTube channel in a few weeks. Brief history of anime. So that will you all will see a somewhat. I re-recorded it, so I'm not rebroadcasting the same stuff that Otakon broadcasts, but it's the same content. It's just me standing up in front of a camera a second time. Well, technically like a ninth time. But yeah, a house edition, nice. Figuring out all that stuff. Boy, does CAD work make those sorts of projects a lot easier in terms of figuring out all the details and going, oh, if you put a board here, everything falls apart. Let's not do that. Definitely helpful. But I'm the same way, Jay. When I was, like 3 or 4 years old, a nurse had to draw blood, and she wasn't very good at it. She was new, and she couldn't find the vein, so she must have stabbed me 10 times, just right here, with a needle, over and over and over and over again. And I can remember that moment, those moments, just trying trying not to cry, and I mean it's not hard to see the veins in my arm. So they finally brought another nurse over who just went right in. But yeah, exactly. And it was she dug. So ever since then, I've had a bit of a needle phobia. Like I've given blood in the past, but I kind of have to look away. Yeah, it's never fun. But fortunately, like I said, it's always been first time after that one person, that one nurse. Darn it. Exactly. Yeah, Unagi likes painful dental work. Good to know. Totally. My funny story. My dad used to give his body naturally generated twice as much platelets as the average person. So like little platelet charms running around in his body. And when he would give blood, folks were like, "Please come in and give platelets. Like however often you want to do that." And I think you have to wait 6 weeks every time. So there we go. So when he would come in, he'd come in like every 6 weeks to give platelets. It was like an hour-long thing. And so after years of doing this, he asked the nurse, "You're sticking me in the arm like every 6 weeks. You've been doing that for a while. Like you can see, a little bit of wear and tear there. Do I look like I have a needle problem? And she said, "Don't worry. Somebody who is doing that, it is very clear that they're doing it because they look like Swiss cheese. It's just they don't know how to do it, and so it's just pockmarked all over the place. It is very different from a professional nurse going in, every month or two. It's completely different." And he's like, "Oh, good. I'm glad to know that." So yeah. Homemade chocolate pudding. Ooh, that's a nice idea. I've been watching a bunch of videos by James Townsend and Son, thanks to Unagi Observer, and watched a video recently about making a portable soup, which I'd like to try until I realize it takes like a week and a half to make it. It's like, Hey, Philippe, good to see you. So I think portable soup would be a fun thing to do, a nice little hobby hopper project, but not just yet. I actually made fried chicken last week, which was fun. Bit of a hobby hopper thing. But you know what I want to do? I want to talk about something I love. Let's do that real quick. And I'm just going to keep this back. Why not? I'm here to talk a bit about something I love, namely Robot Carnival, a movie from the 1980s that is basically a series of short films all put together. They were all made for this movie, so it's not just a bunch of random films all thrown together, because they're all themed around robots and all done by sort of major lights in the anime industry, either then or eventually later on. And so it's a variety of styles, a variety of visuals in this. And what I love about Robot Carnival is because it's a series of short films, there's kind of something for everybody. There's weird robot visuals. There's some very thoughtful moments, thoughtful, quiet stories. They're just all about sort of soaking in visuals and soaking in the moment. There are wonderful sort of carnival-style short films. This one in particular set at an amusement park with a young girl who has a bit of a bad time in the amusement park, and then of course things kind of go weird. But very cute shoujo robots, right? Like, isn't that awesome? And you got wonderful things here like Clouds, which is just a very experimental film, very repetitive, but in sort of an evolving way. Very much an experiment with animation itself. And it ends off, without getting too much into spoiler territory, with a sort of a Night on Bald Mountain-esque robot storyline, which is very, very interesting. And animation budget is high in pretty much all of these throughout. Of course, some of the more experimental ones aren't, because they're not action sequences, they're not lots of crazy stuff. And so you get a variety of things, but it all has that punch of a well-funded, animated work where everyone's really executing on a singular vision. And this is another thing I like. With a lot of things, a lot of anime is made with commercial interest in mind, and that doesn't necessarily ruin a work, right? You can make good things that have commercial interest involved. And obviously they wanted to make money off of this, and they wanted to be successful. But because it's driven more by a specific artistic vision, and because each one is so short, I think that helped the creative team focus a bit more and create something more unique and more distinctive. So Robot Carnival feels much more like a lot of the reasons we all got into anime is because it was different. It's because it was made under different assumptions than we're used to. And that's very much what Robot Carnival feels like. It is something that sticks with you. At least it stuck with me for quite a while. Some of it, may not work as well for you because, we all have different tastes, and some of them are more slow, some of them are faster, and all that kind of stuff. But I think Robot Carnival really does bring that smorgasbord feel of a lot of different things, but because there is one central theme, it doesn't wander too far off that general track of robot science fiction, etc. So it's a really fun ride. I know it's been released on DVD, but it's not easy to find that way. You can certainly track it down in various ways. That's not hard these days. So if you're into sort of science fiction, robot kind of stuff, and especially like experimental animation, This is definitely that. Yeah, and man, Robot Carnival is a great sort of starter anime in the sense because you get a bunch of different, styles in it. It's kind of jumping from one thing to another. So you get something that's more traditional with like the amusement park sequence. You get some stuff that's much more experimental. It's cool. It's really really cool. Played on Sci-Fi Channel, over and over and over again. So that was really fun. So yeah, worth it. Worth checking out. All right. So we got some folks in there. We're going to start the news here in just a moment. It's a different week than usual. We don't have the news pre-set up. So instead, we're going to talk through the news tonight. Thank you. Yes, that is Tenchi in the background. Well spotted. And speaking of that, I might add some lights back there. It's kind of a dark corner, I think. And I think it needs a little bit more brightness just so you can see those posters because it's a little hard to see. There's a bit of Spike back there, and obviously Kagamin from Lucky Star. And you can kind of see that screen. But I need to play around a bit more. Yeah, Spirit Away is another good one. It'll be interesting to put together a list. I was at Otakon Online. There was a panel on manga for parents, or people who it's manga for kids, but the panel was for parents and uncles and aunts and that kind of stuff. People who are going to possibly bring kids into the manga fold, with some recommendations by a librarian. And it was interesting seeing somebody's recommendations of starter manga, right? If you have somebody who's a preteen, what would you recommend to them to start out as a manga? You're not going to hand them Akira or Nausicaa, right? What would be a good, a good starter manga for a kid that age? And then, young teens and so forth and so on. So that was an interesting thought experiment. And I think it'll be a good thought experiment for anime as well. Is what would you recommend to somebody without knowing their preferences or their tastes to get them into anime? And I think Spirited Away, Totoro, I think too. I haven't seen anyone who isn't charmed by Totoro, and who doesn't get into Totoro, especially because it is about children getting used to a new house. It's a pretty universal experience, so that's pretty cool, and that seems to work pretty well. But yeah, so that's cool. I think I'm going to wait a little bit longer on the giveaway, perhaps. Wait for a few more folks to filter in. And in the meantime, let's talk about what's been going on in the world lately. So let's go ahead and transition over. Let me see if I can make that work. We will see what happens here. I can turn that off for a moment. And then we will try to transition over. Oh, we'll have to do this first. I always forget that. And if I do that, we should be good to go. Hello, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Good to see you all and hear you all, as always. You can now entertain them while I spike my tea.
Well, I guess we could start on some of the aspects of the news. Let's see. The one
and what are we spiking our tea with today?
Comes to mind.
What are
is
we
the Crunchyroll issue recently? Yeah.
Oh, nice. Bacardi. All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Actually, I should not have done that. I have learned to never share your alcohol preferences on the internet because everyone will tell you you're wrong.
Oh, good point.
So, yeah.
Look. Booze is booze. It works. As long as it works.
Exactly. Yes.
Hey, JJ, is your mic on?
Yes, it should be.
Yep. I hear JJ.
Yeah.
Oh. I can't hear him.
Are you listening in through Discord or are you listening through YouTube?
You may want to play around a little bit with
Can you hear me, JJ?
I can hear you, Steve.
Interesting. We're having a slight audio configuration issue. I'm hearing you both fine on my end, FYI. So we'll just pause for a second. I don't hear you at all now, Unagi.
But now?
Yep, hear you.
I hear you.
All right, cool.
You hear me?
Just can't hear JJ. JJ, I can't hear you.
That's really weird.
That is bizarre. It's all coming through on this end.
As I say, because I hear Steve, I hear Brent, I hear everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is weird.
Steve's having some issues, so bear with us for a moment. Let's see here. Yeah, I could use that spike today. And in fairness, and I will explain. I woke up this morning feeling a little under the weather. So some scratchy throat stuff.
COVID.
And
Don't say that.
And just a little bit of alcohol-y in a drink tends to just loosen my throat a little bit. Just helps all that a bit with some honey and such.
The medicinal disinfectant version of the libation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I still can't hear you, JJ.
Still can't hear me.
Weird. 1 second. Let me just double check my settings on this end. Make sure I'm not doing anything. I'm going to try that. Oh, can't do that. Right. 1 second. I need to pop this. Boink. Boink. So I just and remuted, or muted and unmuted JJ. And Unagi still can't hear him. What is the way to the station? What is the way? Yeah. Oh, really? Nice. I think that was a joke in Azumanga Daioh, right? That like Yukari Sensei claims she can speak English. They stumble across a foreigner, and she says something like, "Good day to you," and then runs the other direction. Oh, is it? Okay. Oop. I think so.
Okay, we'll see what we get now.
Definitely.
Something, nothing.
1 second.
Okay, we got snake eyes.
Yeah.
We're doing things. Things are happening. Nope.
Okay. Any luck?
Huh.
Yeah.
Seems like he might have something going on his side.
Possible. Certainly seems possible.
Wait.
Oh wait, I hear news coming in.
All right, I'm here. JJ, can you...
And?
I got picture. I got audio.
Hey, look at that.
Hey!
I got everybody.
Life is good. Amazing.
What's the problem? I guess. I don't know.
The problem was turning off the camera and then kicking the computer and then turning it back on. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Fonzie did.
Yep.
Told to sit on it.
So Jay, I don't see that. I see something similar, which is not on the slate for the news right now, but we could possibly talk about it afterwards.
The Florida politician thing?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Uh,
So, in any event, in the meanwhile...
This is like the Australia thing, where it's just the hot button topic to get elected.
Yeah. Well, and he's not, at least in this tweet, he's not proposing a ban. He's just saying.
What's the Florida thing?
I will show you. What's the easiest way for me to show you this? Well, and also, it's Florida. Come on.
Home of Florida man and Florida woman.
Florida kind of is Florida, isn't it? Let me just see if I can grab this real quick. I have the image of the tweet. So if I grab that and save that, I can then pop this in, at least on the tubes. So let me pull up this. I think I have an image. Yeah, let me just pull that in. And I will throw that onto the live stream here. I'll try putting it in a place where it won't cover anyone up. I will now read the tweet. There are now introducing a great deal of anime porn into the internet matrix. Dragon Ball Z is one of the top issues here. They are sexualizing cartoon characters to push a depraved agenda on our kids. What's next? Where will it end? I don't think this is actually a congressional person. I think this is an AI. This is like a GPT-3 that is like reading sentences and then recombining them in a way that almost sounds human, right? Like it doesn't quite come together.
Well, also we're talking about
somebody who doesn't know what anime is.
Yeah,
so,
Oh, clearly. Apparently doesn't know the internet. What is an internet matrix? Like,
I don't know.
It's some 70-year-old guy who said, "War is this thing called the internet."
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what? Scantily clad, drawn women? I don't understand.
You sound vaguely like Claude Pepper.
Really? Claude Pepper. Hello. Claude Pepper here.
Let's see here. K.W. Miller is... It does not say his age, oddly enough.
Jay, that's exactly what I was thinking. Don't take any of the pills. We're talking about the Matrix. I was going to say, you took the red one?
The story ends.
You go back to your normal life in your little happy world.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z is clogging the tubes. All those internet tubes that are doing all the
bring internet to everyone's houses. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Who knew that the downfall of the civilization would be Goku and his Dragon Balls?
Right. Yeah. I mean, granted, Dragon Ball does have all that stuff with Goku figuring out that Bulma's a female.
Oh, Bozo.
Right.
Is it Android? What is it? Android 18, 19? Something?
18. Yeah.
Oh.
Android 18. I mean, so that's something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just envision selling that as like a campaign point.
Mm-hmm.
Anime is bad. We need to do something about it. Be like, you know what I mean?
I think as we said before, why would you choose that when you have actual stuff to choose from?
Yeah.
Make your point.
Yeah. But I agree, Johnny. It sounds like somebody who's not particularly serious.
Yeah.
I think this is somebody who's just throwing things out there to see what sticks. Which sadly is a tactic that some politicians do. But let's get to the news. Let's talk about what's going on in the anime world of the week. And we're going to start with a shocker this week. A bit of a revival for Genesis Climber Mospeada.
Yay!
No kidding. Yeah. This is kind of crazy.
It's only been like 30 years.
I know. 1983 was that series. So.
Yep.
So there's a new project called Genesis Climber Mospeada Genesis Breaker. Not enough Genesis in that title.
Of course.
Shinji Aramaki and Hideki Kakinuma are returning as mecha designers. There's a career.
Wow.
I would love to be able to do that. Get paid just to make up stuff.
Yeah. I worked on this 30 years ago. I'll work on it again. Jeez. They already have a 1/12 scale action figure planned. There's a new armor design.
Yeah. The new armored bike.
Yeah, which looks pretty sweet. The story is set during Genesis Climber. It is set alongside Stick's journey towards Reflex Point. And it's going to be the secret organization known as the Genesis Breakers, moving forward on a mission to study the InBit, or InVid, as they were translated for Robotech.
Robotech.
And Gate is an information gathering specialist, a female wearing female ride armor. So that is going to be a thing. Now, they did not say anime, but we're assuming. There was no specific.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah,
yeah.
But
I hope it's anime. I mean, it'd be nice to have a follow-up to, actual Genesis Climber from all those years ago versus a live-action version of it. But
well, I think if you're bringing back Shinji Aramaki, it's probably going to be anime. Like, you're not going to do that for a manga or whatever, right? I would assume.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But I think that's really cool to see a revival of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that really takes me back. I mean, I'm like actually remembering watching it, in my room, and just remembering being so bummed at not being able to figure out the ending.
Mm-hmm.
And, because I think I was like, 12 at the time, maybe?
Now, were you watching
Maybe
the
12,
actual
12,
Genesis
13?
Climber, or were you watching that third part of Robotech?
See, that's what I'm trying to figure out. It might have been that third part of the Robotech.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Probably.
Say at that time, was 85, 86, it would have been really hard to have found Genesis Climber like in some format itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it must have been Robotech then.
And I hear the soundtracks being done by they're reuniting Genesis.
Ooh, nice.
Now, which
Wow.
version? The Peter Gabriel or the Phil Collins?
It's just the Phil Collins one because
Okay, yeah.
Oh, well, then we can forget that. Wow.
I'm sure the negotiations for that will fall through anyway. It's not very likely.
So yeah, it's interesting because to me, this is one of those things where, on the one hand, like obviously there's no huge, groundswell of 18-year-old anime fans who are begging for a new Muspeda. This is something more for the older fans, which means they're out there, which means we're spending the money too, which I think is good. But yeah, I think it's nice to see that. To see some love for that. And I think also what I like about this is that I think Muspeda, which is, for those who aren't familiar, is one of the bikes. They have this sort of the bike armor. That is a concept that I think you can, update and do in modern anime and look cool.
Right.
Votom's is kind of chunky. Like it was meant to be very sort of, gritty, grounded stuff, and like you could do that today. But I think that's something you can sell model kits of Muspeda pretty easily.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the figurines, and it really does look pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's one of these things where it's obviously Macross carries on forever, and it always will forever ever. Macross today, Macross tomorrow, Macross forever. But it's interesting that it's one of those things where the way that Harmony Gold and Carl Maychek put it together, to drag Macross in with Army of the Southern Cross and with Genesis Climber, that the way they mash them together, it's interesting that now Genesis is getting another shot. What is happening to the Army of the Southern Cross? You know what I mean?
Well,
it was the ugly stepchild of those two. The Delta Macross Delta. Sorry, the Macross stuff for all the mecha was really cool. Genesis Climber mecha also really cool. And then you had hover tanks. They were just terrible.
So funny you should ask that. Maychek tells the story of how, when Robotech came out, they were contacted by the director of Southern Cross. Like, Harmony Gold was contacted by him, thanking them profusely. Because it turns out Southern Cross was going to be his masterpiece, his masterwork. He was a well-known mecha creator, anime creator, and he did Southern Cross, and it took so long for the plot of Southern Cross to spin up that people watched it and they got 5-10 episodes in and were like, this isn't going anywhere, and they all abandoned it. in Japan.
Ooh.
And it had a very poor reputation in Japan because no one like stuck around with it to see where the story was going.
Right.
And then when it got lost, the license brought over for Robotech, it found this new life. And according to Maychak, that director said, "If you would like for me to work with you in the future, I would like to do that as thanks for rescuing my legacy, so to speak."
Wow.
And that didn't work out for multiple reasons. But yeah, I mean Southern, and I think it's one of the reasons why Southern Cross has kind of languished is because it's always had that kind of tarnished reputation in Japan. And over here in America, well, it's part of Robotech, which is this weird licensing thing, so it's kind of in limbo.
Well, it was never ever clear from Robotech's existence that you only had that bit of Dana Sterling filling in between the start of the trilogy and the end of the trilogy. So I've never gone, because I didn't enjoy that section as much. I've never gone back to look and see Army of the Southern Cross. Is it like is there much more story than what they sort of abridged to get Macross joined to Genesis? You know what I mean? Is there so much more story that makes it much more interesting? Because what they show you, no offense to Robotech, love Robotech, but what they show you of that in Robotech is it's not terribly compelling. Equipment's not terribly compelling. A lot of their storylines they're okay enough. You know what I mean? They drop names so you can associate who's with who and what's going on. But in a lot of it, it's just, if that was like the core of what Army of the Southern Cross was like, I could see just bailing out on that after a few episodes. Be like, it's not doing anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Now, they edited out very little of Robotech. Of the original shows for Robotech in terms of like shots, visual shots.
Right.
But obviously they had to rewrite all the dialogue. They didn't have any of the dialogue. I would suspect, as somebody who watched Robotech but didn't go back to watch all of Southern Cross, that there was probably a lot having to do with all the clone stuff and all of the am I real? What are my memories? All that kind of stuff. That the show could have gone further into that. The lines of dialogue in Robotech were not about those things.
Right. Well, I mean, just even if you cut the dialogue out, like visually, there's a lot about that middle portion that's just visually not very interesting.
It's a very standard mecha series of the time. Nothing against it. It just looks a lot like the other mecha series of the time.
Yeah. And it's like the bionoids or whatever they were, that robots on their flying carts from the masters. They, the only thing that did anything was the hover tank, and it converted, from a hover tank to like a sort of mobile 155 platform on legs to a robot. It's like that was the only thing that did something.
Yeah.
Like all the alien technology was just like fairly standard. Giant ships with shields. And then that was it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay. Sort of Gundam-y-ish, where you just have a static robot.
Yeah.
And nothing else is really kind of going on. So it's like, that's a big difference from having Macross, where you have the Valkyries that are flying around, transforming and doing stuff. And it's like, oh, that's cool.
Well, and it's a good reminder that, that's what most mecha are like. It's not Macross. It's not, cool things. It's slight alterations to that same classic mecha design.
But that's what was interesting about Genesis Climbers, that you not only have the Alpha Fighters that convert, you have the Beta Fighter, which is the unit that locks into the Alpha Fighter, and that thing converts on itself, and then you have the motorcycle armor. And all of it, everything's all converting, doing things, and it's just like, that mixed well with Macross, because it's like, okay, now you've got this whole transformable kind of thing going on here. I got that the one in the middle was just like you had one sort of linking element of transformation ability, and then that was it.
I also wonder, the tone of Southern Cross also feels like it could have been different depending on the dialogue, right? There's definitely a sort of a melancholy to Southern Cross that could be enhanced depending on the dialogue.
Right.
Which they may have just not done
Yeah,
for Robotech.
That's actually what killed it for me.
Mm.
It fell out of reach, and when I was watching it initially, and yeah, there was a point where I think I was at the time that I've never gone back to it. I think at the time that I was watching it, I just felt like I wanted. At the time when I was watching it, I said, "I want you to be this,
Yeah.
don't be this," and they were this. Maybe I should go back to Southern Cross and give it another try and see how I felt about it, because like with a lot of other Robotech stuff, I'm just like you guys, I'm just like, okay, the mecha's pretty neat, it does these wonderful things and stuff like that, and Southern Cross. And I was just looking something up, JJ, because you kept saying hover tank, and for some reason I had to look at the movie because it was like one of those like things in your head that you have to scratch because you just can't figure it out right away. You're talking about hover tanks, and for some reason I got Barry Bosworth in my head, and it was that movie Megaforce. And in the end, he's fighting. It's all about like these mechanized cars and dirt bikes and things like that. It's an awful movie. Awful movie.
All right.
Okay. And for some reason, when he kept saying hover tanks, I kept seeing Barry Bosworth's triumphant scene in the end of getting this dirt bike with like 4, rocket missiles on the side of this little shield on the front, and he's like struggling to get it to fly. And when they shoot the missiles off, when he shoots the missiles off, they're like, I don't know if you ever were a kid, but you made model rockets. They were literally just like little model rockets, and creating explosions on these tanks that were really just, I think, Jeeps with a whole bunch of sheet metal around.
Right.
But it was called Megaforce. But for some reason, I kept getting that in my head whenever you were saying hover tank. And I'm going, why is Bosworth getting in my head? This is not right.
Maybe you need some of Brent's spiked tea.
Exactly.
maybe that would help.
I said I'm over.
Exactly. Well,
send it on the YouTubes.
Yes, all those tubes.
Pour it into your end of the tube, and it'll be fine.
Perfect. Well, speaking of difficult attempts, I had this odd little news story I wanted to mention next about an English dub for a movie called The Island of Giant Insects. Because I love covering crowdfunding anime projects, and I think this is really interesting.
And this is just for the dub, not for the film.
For the English dub. The film is made.
I think I saw snippets of it, and it's very large bugs and people not so large.
Yes, it is people getting killed by giant bugs is basically the movie. So there's this company called Sound Cadence Studios. They have done ADR work on anime in the past. The Galaxy Express 39's Eternal Fantasy movie, City Hunter Shinjuku Private Eyes, Ruby. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Not RWBY.
Yes, RWBY.
Okay, thank you.
So that is the thing. And they want to dub this anime film. So they launched a Kickstarter for $80,000 to dub this film, to pay for the actors and the studio time and the editing and all that kind of stuff. They did this some time ago, earlier this year, and it fell short. It did not make its goal. It stopped at, did they say? $27,783 in pledges.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that was kind of disappointing. So they've launched a new Kickstarter. The new Kickstarter is a little less than half that. So a total of 4 million yen, or 38,000 US dollars roughly. With a lot of the extras in the first attempt now stretch goals in the second attempt, which I think is smart. So, a lot of extra stuff just gets added on if everything works out well. They also added some new merchandise as backer rewards, kind of sweetening the pot here and there, with some reorganizations and so forth. And the good news is that as of this very second, as I load the page, they have 29 days to go, and they have made $23,000 of their $37,000 goal. So they're a lot closer percentage-wise than they were before. 200 backers. and I think this was just generally kind of the better way of going. They have
So it was about tweaking how they were running this to get the appropriate response.
Yes.
What did they do wrong the first time? Just posted it up on the wall and said, "Hey, we're doing a thing. Anybody want to join?" And they're like, "That's."
Look, we got this great thing about people dying horribly by giant insects. So, yeah, money.
We'd like to scream in English versus screaming in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Pay us $80,000. Yeah, that's not going to sell it tonight.
Yeah, I think that was the problem.
What's
Is that they were
interesting-
just Go ahead.
I was going to say, according to the article, the where they're saying one of the tiers, one of the giving tiers, being do voice extras on here, and that's actually something we used to do in the theater. So we would actually sell extra roles on stage. The spear carrier third from left kind of thing. And so you would have a donor, and you would have you say, okay, hey, you give us $10,000, we'll put you in costume, we'll give you a spear, and we'll set you right there, and you don't have a line, but you do what you do, and or whatever. And that had provided so much sponsorship for a lot, actually, particularly for opera. When I was at the opera, Baltimore Opera, that did a lot. So I think if you had the money and you said, oh, hey, I could do a voice thing and do this, and maybe throw a few bucks at it, and for the chance of getting it, why not?
And to that point, there are 2 voice roles in here that you could pledge to be part of. I assume they're small background characters, and then there are 4, which is literally the reward is listed as your screams in the movie.
Wow.
Actually, where's my wallet?
Yeah,
I could do a pretty good death scream.
All 6 of those are already sold out.
Damn.
Oh, damn.
So I think you're absolutely right. The folks jumped on that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because that's $750 for your screams in the movie, plus everything else, right? I mean, it's a high tier.
Well, kudos to them. I wonder.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where it's like, I guess you didn't really consult maybe other people's campaigns to see exactly how they did it. And you just sort of said, campaign 1 was just let's launch it and see what people do, and then campaign 2, you're like, maybe we'll put a little bit of research on this, and that with these tiers and perks and things that'll really hook people in on this.
Well, it's also, I don't know that anyone's ever done this before. I don't know of any crowdfunding for an anime English dub that I know of. It could be they did all the research, that is reasonable, and launched it, and we're like, oh, that didn't work because it's not the same thing, right? Like it's possible that that was just kind of an experiment and it didn't work, so they tried something else.
Well, as I say, even though it's just dubbing, it's still entertainment industry.
Yep.
So I think it's the second shot at this sounds a lot more like an indie film put together.
Yeah.
Not, even though there's nothing about this film that's being dubbed that's got anything to do with what they're doing. It's just putting in the dub. They're not animating anything. They're not having to do any of that, post-production, whatever. But it's sounds pretty much like you were doing an indie film from scratch. So that, rather than just saying, hey, give us money, now it's like, oh, you get to be a scream, and you can do that, and we'll give you a keychain, and it's like, so that would be interesting to imagine how they just sat back and looked at some other things and said, geez, here we go.
To be fair, this new one is more of a reorganization of the last one, but expanded. So they had one of the extra roles was in the original Kickstarter, but none of the screams, none of the female character, which I think is definitely a big limiting factor. Like, how many male voice actors are there versus female voice actors? And then lowering that goal, adding more merch, changing around things. I agree. Yeah. In general, I think that they came at this from a direction that turned out to be not ideal. Yeah. But I want to definitely praise these folks for not giving up.
Hallelujah.
I think it's great that they were like, okay, that didn't work. Let's try it again. Learn from our mistakes, and it looks like it's working out for them. So good on them. Also,
Well, it does kind of beg the question: is like, how does does everybody else who does? I mean, Funimation, all their catalog.
Mm-hmm.
Does Funimation pay for the English dubs?
Yes.
You know, so this is very interesting that you have an independent, that you don't have, Sentai paying their people to do, or whoever made the Island of Giant Bugs, that they didn't pay their people, or the licensor of it didn't pay some people to do this, that you have these other folks somewhere out here trying to do this by crowdfunding. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's actually an interesting question. I'm looking it up real quick. I don't know if this is licensed in the U.S. It might not be.
I mean, you would think if it was Funimation licensed, this wouldn't be an issue, because Funimation would then just pay to have it dubbed.
It is on Crunchyroll.
Interesting.
But yeah,
For now.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll get to that.
For now.
We'll get to that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about slightly happier news. Definitely happier news. Tsutomu Mizushima this week hinted that he is working on a new project. And this is, he teased on Twitter on Monday that he is close to starting a new project. It's been in the planning stages for years. Mizushima is the director of Girls und Panzer, Shirobako, The Magnificent Kotobuki, as well as Bludgeoning Witch Dokoro-chan.
Ooh.
Good fun. Good fun.
Yes.
Kujibiki
Yes,
on Balance
I love that.
from Genshiken. Triple X Holic.
Okay.
Azazel-san. He has confirmed that it is neither You're Being Summoned to Azazel or a new Bludgeoning Angel Dokoro-chan, although he said he would be very interested in doing a new Bludgeoning Angel Dokoro-chan if the opportunity came up. But
I would be
not.
interested too.
So I just brought this up because I think it's really fun when creators get out there and say, hey everyone, I'm working on something, get excited. Like, it's always just neat to see.
Hopefully it carries all the way through, though, and it's not
Right.
like I'm working on something new. But I got paid more money to do something else.
Yeah.
So we're going to shelve that. I'm glad I didn't tell you what it was. I'm going to shelve that for another many years and do this other thing.
Okay, so here's a list of everything that he's directed that I'm aware of. Which of these would you like to see more of?
Charles and Panzer.
Just wait.
Sorry, what?
Another
Oh,
Big Wind Up.
Hmm.
Blood Sea.
really?
Ooh,
Yes.
Really?
This man has a resume.
Oh, let's see. Jeez.
Dokoro-chan.
Yeah.
Genshiken.
Koro.
Oh, yeah.
He directed the OVA, not the TV series, but he also directed Kuji-un,
Okay.
Kuji-Began Balance.
Okay.
Girls and Panzer. Hare-gu. Anyone remembers Hare-gu? The little girl on the tropical island?
In the junk. Oh,
Yeah, that one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes. I remember that one.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to forget that one.
Yeah. He was a series composition on Ichigo 100%.
Oh, really? No shit.
Yeah.
Oh, a joke.
Let's see here.
Sorry.
Other things again I'm not familiar with. Lost Village, not familiar with. Magical Witch Punie-chan, which is hilarious. Very much a magical.
Lost Village wasn't the one where everybody's on a bus trying to get to like some strange village where their dreams can come true or something. That's
the one.
Lost Village?
That's the one. That's Lost Village.
Okay. All right.
Prison School.
Oh, wow.
Oh, jeez.
Ooh, wow. He had. Ooh.
Okay.
Shirobako. Squid Girl.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I hadn't thought of this.
Wow.
Witchcraft Work, which you're not familiar with.
Witchcraft Works was good. I enjoyed that one.
Holic, and then You're Being Summoned to Azazel. You got to choose one. What do you see more of?
Charles and Panther.
I'm torn between Dokuro and Blood Sea.
I hear that.
But of course,
Oh,
that's my.
Mm-hmm.
it just what a shotgun blast.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know,
just like everywhere.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's
Totally.
amazing.
So let's just do a crowdfund me page for all of it.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
For all of it. We are attempting to raise $187 million to have all of it made. Wow.
Yeah.
That's just so interesting to think of, like, the differences in all of those individual shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That what is it about his style
Yeah.
that is part of all of those that made that choice. You know what I mean? It's like somebody who's really, really good at horror, and that's their thing. Somebody who's really good at comedy or whatever. It's like, you have a certain kinds of people that sometimes fall into a pretty good path.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get somebody who's like obviously an all-rounder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It can cover all the bases.
Yeah.
Wow.
How do you draw a line from another to Dokuro-chan to Girls in Panzer? Like those. What? I love it. Yeah, pretty crazy.
Wow. Well, that'll be interesting to see what it is.
Mm-hmm.
What this new anime is coming. So
Absolutely. And I think when he posts that on Twitter, it's like, well, yeah, it could be one of any number of things. Who the heck knows?
Yeah.
Gosh. Moving on to some sort of delay-related news. Just because this is worth noting, the anime adaptation of Uzumaki has been pushed back. Adult Swim posted a teaser trailer for this. It was actually made last year, but they updated it to have a new date on it. It's coming out in 2021. They're also doing a interview with the director about it. It is a 4-episode miniseries that will premiere on Toonami, adapting a Junji Ito, I believe, single-volume manga? Or like 2-volume manga, something like that.
It's not big. It's 2 volume.
Okay.
Yeah.
Am I just imagining things, or has Junji Ito just been like a lot of talk about Junji Ito in the last like several months?
Yeah, he's gone big time. I think the Junji Ito collection anime from a couple seasons back helped to kind of build some of the interest.
Well, I know Crunchyroll has been pushing Junji Ito madly.
Really?
So it's like the Crunchy store has an entire collection section just Junji Ito stuff. T-shirts and knickknacks, various things.
Yeah. That's interesting. I wonder if it's one of those things where he's just been. I mean, he's certainly not laboring in obscurity in Japan, but there's enough there now. And actually, that's a good point. I wonder if it's one of those things where there is such a buildup of merch in Japan. Everyone knows that all that is. Now that there's enough interest in America, they're like, great, we have so many things we can sell you, Junji Ito related.
You have boatloads. Here it is.
Here you go.
Could be.
We'll see.
I just can't wait for it. I just loved when I saw the trailer. What was it, 8 months ago? Was it 9 months ago?
Something like that.
Or
Yeah.
was it further than that? Yeah. I just think it's beautiful. I mean, it's crazy. It's there's a lot of craziness going on there, but I just think I'm just in the mood of just something different like that now. You know what I mean? And I'm a little bit. I'm happy to see it as an Adult Swim and not Netflix. To be honest.
Yeah. It'll be much more accessible in Adult Swim.
Yeah. And but I'm just like, when I watched that trailer, I was just like, oh my god, this is amazing. This is so weird, but you won't need drugs for that one. You just watch it.
Which is pretty typical for Junji Ito, and that happened. Okay. Wow. All right, let's move on to some streaming news. Start with the good news first. That's it. Update to Netflix's catalog. They have added 2 anime scripted by Mari Okada, Toradora and A Lull in the Sea, now on Netflix. Toradora being one of the great classic shoujo romance anime with one of the classic tsundere characters of all time. And then, Taiga. And they also added a Tokyo Ghoul Re, 24 episodes of that, plus the third season of Tokyo Ghoul, as well as Tokyo Ghoul. The square root of A is what I'm seeing is the symbol. I don't know, there's a little square root symbol and then A. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
Tokyo Ghoul Alpha or something. Let me just see if there's something. Tokyo Ghoul. Just Tokyo Ghoul square root of A. Okay. They've also brought a few things back, relicensed apparently. Samurai Champloo and Terror in Residence now back, as well as Trigun. So if you've never checked out Trigun, it is now on Netflix. And I'm hoping that Trigun becomes one of those shows that just becomes, like a Nick at Night show. It's everywhere, where it's just cheap enough to license that just everyone has it everywhere because everyone should see Trigun.
It should be, because in Japan they don't really care about it at all. When they made that thing, everyone's just like, oh, okay, it's a Western, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then it came over to Adult Swim, and then people like me are just like, this is funny and good, and
absolutely. I went to Anime Expo a couple of years ago, and I happened to be there with a panel with the director of Trigun, and he was there, and it was a Trigun panel. I was like, oh, I'm going to that, no question. And so I went to the panel, and I got there like 15 minutes early, and a Vash player comes in, and a Wolfwood cosplayer comes in. And the Japanese guests come in, and he he jumps up and points because he says, "You don't understand."
Is this Satoshi Nishimura?
My thing. I should redo this. One moment. There we go. He said, "You don't understand. I have never seen Trigun cosplay before." Because this show is not popular in Japan, right? Like, no one cosplayed it in Japan. Yeah. So he, had them all come up and take photos with him, and he was just thrilled as punch.
Wow, that's awesome.
To actually see
cosplay.
Was this
Satoshi Nishimura? Satoshi Nishimura?
It could be. Let me just double check.
He was the director, director, and storyboard.
Might not be. Might be the overall director who was... no, sure. That must have been him. Because it was him and Yosuke Kuroda, the writer, were there. Because that was where they announced Bad Then Trumbull, that was coming out.
Oh, okay.
And they said, and the only reason this exists is because you guys have been buying Trigun DVDs for the past 10 years. And there's just so much American sales of Trigun that we were able to get folks interested in making a movie out of it.
Nice.
But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It kind of died in Japan.
I wonder what he would have thought about the guy that at Otakon. He went there for 3 straight years. I think it was 2010 to 2013. And he came as Wolfwood, and he had his gun, Wolfwood's gun. One year it was all Lego.
Wow.
He made the whole thing out of Lego, and then he said that he didn't have enough time to reassemble it one year because I asked him, and it was Tinker Toy.
Wow, that's awesome!
Right, and it looked amazing. Amazing. I was like, oh my god! Yeah. But of course, that is my favorite character from the series.
Sure. Oh yeah. Oh, I have strong memories of Trigun. That show. Let us also talk about some other streaming news, not quite as happy. Crunchyroll has updated their catalog. It was actually really interesting watching this because I happened to be on Twitter when this news came out, and seeing how different people reported on it was really fascinating. Because some folks were like, Crunchyroll abandons 77 anime. And some folks were like, Crunchyroll loses the license for 77 anime. And that's actually more accurate. But point being that, and here's the problem. No one explained exactly what was going on here, but it's fairly clear from context that the streaming rights for these shows from Sentai expired. Because it's August 1st, it's beginning of the month. And so 77 and Sentai Filmworks series will, or have now, gone away from Crunchyroll.
They're gone.
They're gone. Notable
Which
ones.
is a great way
To tell us how you feel
clear
about
my queue. Like it wiped out like
So that's
5 or 6
interesting.
shows from my queue.
So-
I'm like, thank you.
So did
Sure.
they actually disappear from your queue?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Shirobako, the picture of
That would be
Shirobako is
so
on there.
annoying.
And if I click on it
that's-
to watch the next episode, it comes up with a 404
Yeah,
error.
that's what happens to me. It's still there as an item.
Yeah.
But none of the videos are there. Yeah.
Yeah, humanity's declined.
Mm-hmm.
Click 404 error. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
jerks.
So the big ones that I'm aware of are, I mean, obviously a lot of AKB48, Argivolen, Bodacious Space Pirates, Broken Blade, Captain Earth. Let's see here. Dusk Maiden of Amnesia, Flip Flappers, Frame Arms Girl, Glass Lip, Girls Beyond the Wasteland, Hakuoki, Humanity has Declined, Magic of Stella, Magical Play. Yep. Wait, Magical Play? Is that what I'm thinking of? Is that? No, never mind. Yes, it is. Wow, Magical Play. That's a thing. Nobunaga the Fool, Feebrain, Rail Wars, Rin-Ne, all seasons. Rosen Maiden, Sakura Trick, Shirobako, So I Can't Play H, Supersonico, Dragon Dentists, Ungo, Undefeated Bahamut Chronicle, Wakaba Girl, Wizard Barristers, and Wish Upon the Pleiades, plus, of course, a bunch of others. Now, I've double-checked a few of these, and they appear to all be on Funimation and Verve. Because guess what? Funimation 2 snapped up those licenses.
Yeah.
So I think if you want them, you'll have to jump over to Funny.
Or I can just let it go.
Or let it go.
Just
Yes.
let it go.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame because some of those were good titles. The Undefeated Bahamut Chronicles was pretty good, you know.
Yeah.
Let it go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It is the consequence, we were talking about this before, of the streaming wars. You know, just things shift around, and can't depend on anyone's service. This is one of the things that fortunately some like media watchdog sites are doing better at doing like there's some, I know, anime sites that will say, here is the anime that will be leaving Crunchyroll at the end of the month.
Yes.
And that's really helpful.
Which is usually very helpful.
Because gosh, it kind of happens out of nowhere.
I'm kind of hearing from JJ, stop breaking my heart. It's just
don't go breaking my heart.
Well, when they got rid of Hanasako Iora, when they got rid of that one, they let everybody know 30 days in advance. And I was all like on episode 2, so I hustled it up. I finished out the series, and off it went. And it's like, this for the 77 titles. Thank you, Brent, for having news, because I had no idea. So as soon as I saw that little snippet, I went and looked, and on my queue, sure enough, like I said, 404, item not found. I'm like, oh, if you told me a month in advance, I would have gotten stuff done.
The only reason I laugh is I'm imagining a whole bunch of people watching Anohana halfway through, then suddenly disappears.
Whoop. Yeah.
Like, I need to know.
And then trying to figure out where they can go find it to just finish the few episodes and be done. Yeah.
To add to the sting, Crunchyroll announced on Tuesday it has now crossed the 3 million subscriber point, with over 70 million registered users. So that's pretty impressive. I'm assuming that means 3 million paid subscribers, as opposed to like
probably
sign-ons on the site.
Yeah.
They reached 2 million in October 2018 and 1 million in February 2017. So it took a little longer to reach this mark than the previous one.
The question is, even with 3 million paying subscribers, you know, we talked about this a little bit earlier with God of High School, that Crunchyroll and Webtoons together, they've got their advertising all over the back of things in that show to show, you know, hey, this is our show.
Yep.
When you have Funimation and Sentai pulling stuff and putting it on their streaming services, how's having 3 million subscribers is great, but where are you getting your hands on stuff? Because it looks like Funimation's like the pretty big gorilla in the house. How are you prying things out of Funimation's hands?
Yeah, I'm assuming you got to get there first. Well, and I think that's one of the big problems is that Crunchyroll for a long time relied on the other company deals with the other companies, the big licensors, and said, okay, your catalog is now with us, and now they can't do that anymore. They kind of got to do it one by one, or just own it.
Well, that's when Hanasaku Iora went, because that was when the Funimation Crunchyroll operating agreement fell out, so that it was part of the Funimation catalog, and away it went.
Yep.
So, and I think, despite 3 million paid subscribers and 70 million, unique accounts, I still would lay my money on Funimation having the reputation, cred, cash to get in first. If you were going to have somebody sitting down, JC staff says, we've got something right now to license, and Funimation walks through the door with Crunchyroll, they're probably going to look at Funimation and be like, you got a deeper pocket, don't you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, everything I've heard about Japanese businesses being so relationship focused, I'm expecting that they are kind of relying on that. That if they've had relationships with JC staff for the past 5-10 years, whatever, that hopefully they will, keep their place at the table.
Well, Jay just threw in there Funimation's owned by Sony.
Yep.
Oh.
And Crunchyroll is not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
else.
so.
Well, they're owned by somebody else now.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Who's Crunchyroll owned by? I thought it was still its own operating.
Oh, everything's owned by somebody. Let me just double check. I thought they Outer Media, AT&T, Warner Media. Yeah, so they're owned by AT&T and Warner.
So who do you think walking into a Japanese studio would get more relationship cred? The company that's owned by a Japanese company, or the company that's owned by an American company?
The other side of that coin, though, is that Sony has... Yeah, and Sony has stated that they want to keep sort of hands off on Funimation. Not that they will not do anything, but they're trying not to meddle too much in Funimation. Kind of trying to let it do its thing and not get destroyed by corporate overlord.
That won't last. Nope.
Yeah. So trying to squeeze every penny out of everything. It's
as soon as Funimation proves its point in terms of its ability to make money, Sony will screw it up. They'll jump in with both feet.
All right. Well, let's.
And on that down note.
Yeah. Now that we're all sad, thanks.
Let's end with something a little happier. Who wants to make pottery?
Who wants to be a millionaire?
There's a new anime coming out called Let's Make a Mug 2.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Which is all
I'm
about.
not going to lie. I'll buy into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It had already been announced.
It has cute girl pottery making anime all over it.
Absolutely.
Hey, look at this story. Look at this story. Just, good lord.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, the story is making pottery. Like that's the story.
Yeah. Club life is the only life.
So the backstory of this is one of these anime made sort of made by a prefecture. So a particular area in Japan wants to increase tourism. So there's initially a manga, which started back in 2012, quarterly updates. Now in their 32nd chapter, and they've now launched an anime series or announced an anime series. Announced back in February, but now they have more details. It will be directed by Jun Kamiya, who is another person with kind of an interesting resume. Blue Seed.
Really?
Yep. Let's see here. And storyboard and direct and key animation and such and a bunch of other stuff. But Hikaru no Go. Chunks of Hikaru no Go. Kingdom. Neo Ranga. Penguin no Mondai. Let's see here. What are some of the other ones? The third, The Girl with the Blue Eye. And Ys, the anime adaptation of Ys, the video game series. So interesting sort of split of that. And he's done, like I said, like storyboard work on everything from Pokemon to Nadia to Key the Metal Idol. Speaking of Goblin Slayer,
like Nadia Fushigi, whatever the heck it was.
Nadia Secret of Blue Water. Yeah. That Nadia. Sarah's Celestial Legend, Clan School Detectives, Elemental Galad. So yeah, I mean he's done quite a bit. Directed at Nippon Animation, and then it is being written and supervised by, and this kind of caught my eye, kind of a similar thing, writer on Dragon Ball Z, also Blue Seed, Kakegurl Nuku Nuku, Island,
Nuku, wow,
Iria, Zerum the Animation. Let's see here.
Island. Father? Oh, Island was terrible.
Okay, well. Yeah,
it's not a good show.
Steel Angel Kurumi, oddly enough. Actually, the series composition on Kurumi is pretty cool.
Nice.
So what's nice?
That show.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these announcements, it's like, okay, we're making this sort of regional anime. We'll take what we can get. But clearly, these are, and like if you look up the voice actors, they all have a good number of credits to their names. So this looks like it's going to be a pretty notable production, which is always nice to see. So yeah, let's see here. So we have a pottery novice, the Pottery Club's mood maker, the anime and game fan, and the club president who's enjoyed pottery since she was little. So I think we could all write this series right now. I think we know all we need to know.
Is it cute girls doing cute things?
Pretty much.
Yeah, well, they have a cute little kappa on the image here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that part out, but
yeah,
maybe they're making the little pottery dish to put on the kappa's head.
Probably,
yeah.
That makes sense.
Who knows?
Totally.
Who knows?
Well, also the blonde girl is holding like a kappa thing as well, so maybe maybe they're copying it or something. I don't know.
Well, it could also be it's a play on words.
Cup. Yeah.
So they're making cups.
Okay.
So
possible.
Making a kappa.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I would not at all be surprised.
Yeah. I'll bet against you.
You'll bet against me. Oh, circle gets the square. Damn you.
Paul Lind. Cool. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. It sounds like it's one of those things where I'm glad to see this is a regional anime series that thought this through in a way that I think really makes sense, where you can do something that's just, we're going to be wandering around this area of Japan. Where it's like, okay, that's fine, but there's nothing really tying it to it. Or you can make it like really regional specific. But I think this is something that will appeal to a lot of people. It has a nice concept, and the fact that I can't think of another pottery anime. Like it's a nicely unique kind of concept. Yeah, it's different.
Yeah,
which I think is smart.
There was last season. Gosh, I can't remember what it was. It was a guy who was like the reincarnation of Oda Nobunaga.
Okay.
Oh.
And he goes to a museum,
mm-hmm.
and he touches accidentally a pottery cup or a bowl or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it turns into a girl.
Okay.
Like his first concubine or
Mm.
wife or something like that.
Mm.
So it's pottery-ish.
Okay,
but
yeah.
There's
Mhm.
nothing that's actually anybody making any pottery.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting though to think of, and I mentioned it before, about Hakone-chan, the seven hot springs
Yeah.
of Hakone.
Mm-hmm.
That was the same kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
the Hakone Hot Spring Regional Authority got together, and I think it's like 12 episodes, and each episode's like 5 minutes long.
Mhm.
So it's reasonably short.
Yep.
But their regional JCs got together and said, let's fund an anime that'll talk about all the hot springs, and we'll give each hot spring a different goddess, and they'll all sort of interact and have like they'll hate one another or love one another or whatever else. But it's like, this is great regional tourism kind of thing to get people interested in coming to the hot springs. And it's like, so when I saw the pottery thing, I'm like, here we go. We're catching on with this.
Yeah, and apparently this prefecture is known for its article says Mino earthware.
Yes, and I should have mentioned.
I don't know that much about it, but I just read that.
I should have brought that up. That that is a thing the prefecture is famous for.
Yeah.
Well, there was another one from a couple of maybe a year or so ago that was exactly this, but the boy is moving to this prefecture, and the entire thing is about how bad of a reputation the prefecture has. So it's this whole comedy about how he's going to move there and he assumes that it's going to be like the worst time in his life. And then he goes there and it's like a lot of his fears are confirmed. So they're basically just kind of making fun of how different their prefecture is from the rest of Japan. So it's kind of.
Do you remember what the name is?
I do not. No, there's it's
I'm sounds like that could be hysterical.
Yeah, it was great.
You're reminding me of Osaka and the Azumanga namer for that. And in English dub, they of course put her with the worst Southern Texas accent, imaginable for the dub to look at the prefecture. I love this concept of using various things to promote your area where you live, because I can't really think of any other places that really do that on this level. I'm reminded of the John Oliver episode where they're talking about mascots, Japanese mascots, and how that there are actual mascots representing not just industries and stuff like that, but actual towns.
Oh, yeah.
There's just one. And if you want a good laugh, go on YouTube and type in Chiitan, Chiitan.
Okay.
Comma John Oliver, and all these Chiitan mascots are going to come up. It's the unofficial mascot of this one particular fishing town, Japan, and the thing is just psychotic. I just can't explain it. You just have to watch it. It's just like cute, like pink kitty mascot that just goes around town and just like with like hides like bats behind its back and does all these weird, creepy little things, but then does all these really cute things. But it's so popular and it represents it. And there's an actual dude who plays drums for his town. And I wish I could remember the name of the mascot, but I'm sure if you were to look it up, this guy is an actual accomplished drummer, and he plays in the mascot suit.
Cool.
And he plays with other mascots who play instruments as well. But yeah, I just think it's interesting, to do things like that.
Absolutely. Well, in all these prefectures.
How many animes have you seen where you've got the Shotengai, or the shopping street? Is that what it's called? And there's like some mascot at some point, kids from high school or middle school are walking through, and there's like some weird costume character handing out flyers. It's like, so obviously, again, it occurs enough times, and it is so inconsequential oftentimes to the story that it obviously some truth to it, because the kind of background radiation, you don't just do it for nothing. You do it because it is a thing.
There's a whole episode of Japanology on that, about mascot characters in Japan.
Jay got it. Nobunaga teacher's young bride.
Cool.
That's what it was.
Thank you, Jay. There we
Good
are.
call, Jay.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's like every town has a mascot. It's pretty crazy. I want to know what the mascot is for that town that's got all of the dolls in it.
Oh.
Oh, Jesus. The creepy doll mascot.
It's probably the old woman that...
Oh boy, yeah, pretty silly, pretty crazy, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Should be fun.
I'm just curious as to why you don't have more. You know what I mean? There are some notable ones, and then you have places which I'm sure again, girls in Panzer. You have Osai Academy. You have the town of Osai. or Ori, or
Yeah,
it's the name of the town, or the name of the school ship is slightly different than the actual town's name. But they've got all their little things where the locations that show up, they've got supremacy. But you know what I mean? You see that occur in things, but it's like, why to make a 12 episode 5 minutes apiece? You'd think there'd be a few more rich prefectures that would try it.
This book is all about why that is. Most prefectures have no idea what anime is, how to fund it. Not what anime is, but they have no idea how to insert themselves in the production process. They can't even imagine spending money on anything other than flyers. There's just no conception of movie. Because one of the plot of this is the character. It's fiction based on reality, set in with various folks in the anime industry. One of the characters is an animator working at an anime studio that's way out in the boondocks, and they basically start talking to the local people at the town, saying, "Hey, we could set our next anime in this town and increase tourism." And it is like pulling teeth to get anyone in the town's tourism board to work with them, because to them, anime is Chibi Muroko-chan. Or Sazai-san.
Or Crayon Shin-chan.
Right, exactly. Because they're all 75 years old. None of them have any conception of the media mix or any of that kind of stuff. And if they're dumb, right. they didn't watch any of this stuff. They're all farmers.
Well, it's interesting because it's essentially you're doing it more episodic, but it's essentially just a commercial.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? Conceptually, you get more out of it. 12 5-minute episodes, you can actually cover more ground than you can in a minute worth of advertising.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Now, mind you, the cost of a minute's worth of advertising, you can film and have somebody edit that film together and do a voiceover. A hell of a lot cheaper than making an anime.
Yeah.
But for something that's an impact kind of thing, it's just it's very interesting that a lot of places would just forego that.
Yeah. Apparently it's just kind of so outside of the realm of what they're used to that it just kind of never occurs to them.
I wonder if the next generation of townies and political functionaries will have a little better grasp on that than not, the 80-year-old people.
And not to get too dark, but assuming the town is still there for the next generation.
Well, at least the prefecture will be there.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
The town, it's just some of those towns might not, but the prefecture will be there.
Yeah. And by the way,
nothing in cups.
Somebody is going to assume I'm talking about, apocalypse. I'm talking about the aging of Japan. That's what I'm referring to there. But yes, it's interesting. So yeah, and what was the statistic? JR Rail is looking to decrease the number of rail lines in Hokkaido by 1/3 because that's
cut off a lot of people.
Right, but that's how much the demand has decreased, and then there's a lot of backlash from folks saying, "I can't drive. I never learned to drive because there's always been train service."
Was it Sakura Trick? Where the girl comes from Tokyo to be the spokeswoman.
Sounds right, yeah.
For a town, and their town is going to be merged with the town next door, and a lot of the older people in town, that's exactly their thing. It's like they have a community van that drives around and picks up the elder folks to take them to a place to shop and to get groceries and other things because these people don't drive.
Yep.
And the bus service doesn't get there now anymore because they've just gotten rid of it, and the train isn't anywhere near them because normally they take the bus to the train. So it's just like that's a little bit of truism there.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a thing. It's a weird situation to be in, and I mean that's kind of just the consequence of along the population, and then having a non-child boom and all that kind of stuff. This is interesting.
Well, I mean, certainly too. You look at population shift anyway, regardless of birthing statistics.
Right. Yeah.
You tend to have here in America. You have a lot of the farming
Mm-hmm.
belt of America that people are bleeding off towards the coasts. They're bleeding off towards cities in those regions, and they're increasingly going off the land because that's in a technologically advanced society. People are not finding that need to stay on the farm.
Yeah,
which is sad because you kind of need a farm to eat.
Yeah. Well, and okay, we're gonna go way off the reservation now, which is fun. But
It's
also,
after 10.
Hey, but also, and the other thing too is that like crop yields have increased so dramatically over the past couple of decades, half century, that we don't need as many farms, which has this unfortunate thing of people saying, "Well, we don't need farm. Like I can just leave now. That's fine. Like there are, it'll be fine." It's like, but we still need some. Like we don't want you all to leave. Like that's a problem. So yeah. And then the whole thing of mono agriculture or monoculture within agriculture, and we producing corn and soy and all that stuff.
Yeah, heavy reliance on crops that if something goes desperately wrong, you're screwed.
Yes. So
can anyone say potato famine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the big question is there, for the number of people that have retreated to cities or not retreated, who have advanced to cities and retreated from the rural life, and you have the village of scary, creepy dolls, do you have real estate values, not in farmland, but literally the buildings in the village that are not tied to an agricultural plot? So just a residential plot.
The quick answer is,
well, do you have people in the cities buying those for vacation homes?
Quick answer is actually yes. Those homes have value. The problem with that, of course, is upkeep and being able to find replicate value, meaning when you do an appraisal of a real estate appraisal of a residence, you do a thing called comparables, and you see what it is like. So you kind of oversimplifying it, but you get like the low end, the high end, the middle, and then you figure out where your property is or your house is on that.
Right.
Your land value is different because it means different things. So if you're looking at a house, you can actually buy the house on top of the land. Now, depending upon where you live, that land might be rented. So in other words, what might happen is, out west, it used to happen here in Maryland. Out west is that you would say, okay, I'm moving out of my homestead, I'm selling it or whatever, and someone can buy that homestead, but the owner of the house, the former owner, can still own the land around it and with the land on top of it. And so they make money off the rent. So they rent the land out from under you.
Which why in the heck you would sell property not in fee simple and just go on with it? I don't know, other than being a total jerk.
I mean, exactly.
Money making jerk.
But no, that was actually the problem here in Maryland. And that's why we more or less did away with it because of that very reason. It just is so antiquated, and people were abusing that. And so you could someone could foreclose on the land but not the house. The bank would come in and say, you have to leave, but I own the house. Doesn't matter. We own the land. It kind of works. I'm vastly oversimplifying it, but that's basically it. But what's happening is that when you have people that leave, because while you do have people coming to the city, you also have people leaving the city.
Well, I don't mean literally leaving. So it's not. It was I can't remember the anime. Oh no, it was Poco's Udon World, where he leaves Tokyo to go to a husband and wife animation studio that's in this rural town where he grew up as a kid. And
yes,
you know what I mean? It's like, so that is him leaving for another job. I'm literally talking where you've got this depopulation in the countryside where you have people who are now made it doing their business thing in the large cities, going out and acquiring residential plots, shaping them up, getting them back into condition, and then that's a vacation house. That's their summer home.
Yes, and that's what's happening actually on the Eastern Shore. Actually, that's what my little sister did. or Sherwood, on Tillman Island, near Tillman Island, which is a lot of farmland out there. But yes, that's what they're doing. So that is a thing. But then it comes down to when you're talking about the property value, the problem comes in is the fact that it is so depopulated out there, and that's why your prices come down, and that's why people are so able to afford those afford those places, because the prices are ridiculous. Like the place that my little sister got, she got it for a song and a dance. If it was in Montgomery County, forget about it. It would have been low bid would have been $850,000. She didn't pay that. She paid like a quarter of that. So it just, but that's part of the problem is that with the depopulation, you also get less of course other things. So when people do that, they're doing it mainly as a summer home, or they're doing it to rent out to people to make additional income, because the resale is not going to happen unless the land is being developed around it. And then once the land is developed, of course, then your values start going up. And then you start getting into population shift. Where do they go from? It's just like when everyone left DC and went to PG County. Or into Northern Virginia, and suddenly all that land just went boom, 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 gone to the point where an acre of land is like something ridiculous, like $75,000 for just an acre. That's doing nothing.
So to give folks outside of this area an idea, maybe watching this, I live about 45 minutes like southwest of Washington D.C. roughly. The value of my condo has increased $40,000 in the last year.
Yeah.
Damn.
Just because of where I am, because Amazon announced their headquarters, not far away from here. All that, when you're in a hot spot, that helps a lot. It makes a difference.
Wow.
Well, and Japan also has the problem, and obviously, we're all, speaking out of, we don't know all the details of everything going on in Japan. But one of the issues is if you are still active in business in Japan, because so much business is done through interpersonal relationships. If you move somewhere, even if it's just a summer home, you can't really do business until you go back into the city. Right. So you could go out there, for a week in the summer, or maybe on Saturday, but that's it. You really have to live in the city. And then also and again, I don't know how much of an issue that this is, but the burst of the Japanese bubble was primarily due to real estate, or dramatically due to real estate.
Oh my God, the Rockefeller Center.
Yeah. So I think there's also a perceived fear amongst a certain segment of the Japanese population of saying, we don't want to do anything weird with real estate. We don't want a second home. We don't want anything. We're going to have this one house and live in it forever.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, there was some articles about this recently about one of the difficulties builders have in Japan, because people are so resistant to real estate investment. They basically, they buy a place, they live in that place, they might upgrade and go to a different place, but no one's going to own a second apartment. Even if it's nearby, nobody's interested in in any sort of real estate stuff, by and large.
Wow.
And so it's just hard to kind of grow the real estate part of the market.
They've been burned.
Yeah.
They burned themselves so badly in the 80s.
And in fairness,
one of the...
Go ahead. No, please.
One of the reasons why is because they had what people were doing, what banks were doing is they were selling to them knowing that the Japanese didn't know American values. So they made a mistake that one set of values is the same in another area. Whereas I can tell you right now, I'm in Baltimore, and your same condo will not have that effect.
Right, exactly. Yeah, totally.
Right. And we're only about 50 miles away from each other. So 50, 60 miles away from each other. And for you down in Roanoke, you're far enough away. The values are significantly different.
Brent's condo would buy half the block. Think about it, Brent. Half a block.
Hey, I have thought about it. Well, no, this is another thing. Like, and I feel really bad because so my job is teaching folks fresh out of college how to code, and so they have to buy apartments in the area, and I'm seeing them paying or renting, but I'm seeing them putting down money on these places I know are worth $300,000-$400,000 of in terms of value. I'm like, that's a lot to have to pay for something. Like, jeez.
Right. Yeah.
Gosh, and, as for a single person apartment, single family kind of place, nothing huge. Yeah, it's rough.
Well, just the idea if the Japanese are so burned with real estate experience, you really threaten to ghost town a tremendous number of viable communities, and vacation community areas are not exactly so dense and cohesive, but you think of places like Bald Head Island or Topsail Island or Oak Island, Outer Banks kind of stuff. There's a lot of towns that when it gets to be holiday time, they've got triple the population, and then at the end of the holiday season there's like 2 people left over. And it's like, so if you have this sort of unwillingness to mess around with real estate again, you absolutely doom some of these nice old little towns to absolute extinction. And that's culturally rather disturbing.
Problem is for the Japanese was, I don't know if it is now, but what it was in the 80s and the 90s was that their own land, the value of their own land was exponentially off the charts. A, because it's an island, it's limited. B, how they treat the land. C, their own agriculture practices. And, so there's a lot in there, so that when you're able to get 1 acre or hectare of land where you're able to build something on it, costs a lot of money. It's just, you're talking millions of US dollars. It's not cheap. And so, that's, I think, where the fear of the commitment for the older generations of not leaving their towns and going into the city, or people in the city coming out, is that they remember these horror stories of saying, I remember when Uncle Joe went out there, bought that beautiful piece of land, and, and then suddenly this dry spaceship came out of nowhere and flattened the house. But no, seriously, they go out there and they would make an unproductive hole in the ground because they would run out of money. And they would be burned for the land because nobody's going to buy it for what they bought it for. And that's part of the, like when we had the market bubble here in the United States, it was a big problem. People were saying, but I bought it for this much. Why? Zillow is saying its value is this. Right. And then you have the reality of people going, yeah, no one's going to buy it for that. No one's going to spend money for that. Come on.
Well, and this is one of the things this article pointed out is that, and obviously, I'm making this out to be a little more popular than it actually is. People are buying real estate, but that this fear of the real estate market is in a lot of ways outdated. Yes, that was a problem back in 1987. But the market has changed, the laws have changed, that kind of stuff is not as easy to happen these days. And the folks you're working with know that happened and are not going to jump with 2 feet into that same situation again. So, you don't step into the same stream twice. It's not as bad as it used to be. But that's the thing.
It's just getting them there.
Yeah,
it's just getting them there.
And the folks are pointing out in the chat room, you also have the whole, people want to stay single, and so no one's buying, family homes. No one's expanding their homes. They're staying in that little apartment for their entire lives. That's an impact too.
A 4 tatami mat room. That's it.
Exactly. Yes. Somebody in the Discord, sent a link recently to a documentary about people who live in internet cafes. Just in a little cubicle.
I'd heard something about that.
Yeah, because it's cheap. You just live out of that for a while. It's
I'm not gonna lie. There have been times.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought, fine.
How much do you need?
Right.
Yeah, we don't have anything like
metal
that here.
clothing.
You just end up living in a hollowed-out tree. I mean,
They exist. They exist. Yeah, maybe that's the thing. Yeah.
We live in a van down by the river.
By the river, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Showering at the Flying J or pilot truck stop. Living in the back of an abandoned tractor trailer. Mm.
I just read Vanabode, a very interesting book about that. Oh yeah.
Did you see they moved the Into the Wild bus? Is that Into the Wild? Is it the guy who went to Alaska and ended up dying in the Alaskan outback and he lived in a bus?
Oh, that was McCandless.
Well, it wasn't Into the Wild. What was it called then? What was his book or the book about him?
No, I think it was Into the Wild.
Yeah, they hella lifted his bus off of the trail.
Wow.
Because so many people were trying to get up the trail to see the bus that they were getting like in trouble and having to be rescued and getting hurt and dying. This is like not the kind of tourism you want.
Yeah, exactly.
I went to see an old bus about some guy who starved to death in the wilderness, and half of my party died on the way. That was well worth the effort.
Sounds like a standard D&D game.
Or a trip up Mount Everest.
Yeah, exactly.
One way or the other.
That's a whole... I'm not going to go in there. That's morbid.
Back away, not today.
So I want to talk a little bit about Otakon Online, because that was this weekend. So Otakon Online was basically all hosted on Twitch. They had, I think, 6 different Twitch channels running, panels and such. What were all your experiences with it? What was it like? How'd it go?
I had a good time, but it was odd for me, because this is the summer of online conventions, so everyone does it a little bit differently, and so I enjoyed it immensely. I enjoyed actually the one that came on after you, the Dr. Herman. What was her name? She did the
Catherine Hammond.
Legend of Zelda.
Hammond. Yeah.
She did Legend of Zelda and Japanese religion, and I didn't think I was going to be interested in that at all. But then I started listening in, and it was just fascinating. I'm not really a gamer, and I was just like really enthralled with what she was having to say. I just felt like 30 minutes wasn't enough for some of these panels. She had 35, 40 minutes, but she also had the Q&A. But she was also sponsored by 7C. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or some agency from Japan. It was interesting, but I just felt like that there could have been a little bit more. I felt like with the resources that Otakon had, there could have been. I was really surprised when he said it was just one day.
Yeah.
Which really surprised me. I was kind of hoping it was going to be longer than that because I didn't see the notice of it to remind me.
That's the thing.
Until like 2 in the afternoon. I'm like, oh crap! I'm like, oh, I forgot it was today. I'm like,
I just thought it was kind of weird because OnCon, when you guys put it up, it was like basically like 2.5, 3 days worth of stuff, and you guys put it together with not nearly the resources that Otakon had.
I will guarantee you don't have the resources Otakon has.
But we had, of course, we all had a lot of fun then too. But
wait a minute. Let me make this comment. It was Brent's YouTube money. Oh,
that's what it was. Yeah.
The thousands of paid people behind the scenes that helped Brent get everything going. Perfect. Perfect. The unsung heroes of OnCon.
I wear collared shirts for a reason.
Because you're the boss, man. You're the boss.
Yes.
I noticed Jay Harris isn't in today. Which I was going to say, because that was the only one I really caught any good portion of. Other than the physics, which we talked about, the physics of anime. It's like, so I was really hoping there was going to be a tomorrow, but oh well. That boat sailed. And they certainly did not, and maybe it's just, again, it could be easily me. But trying to find where Otakon was broadcasting was not immediately evident on their homepage.
Okay.
So it took me a little to work my way through to where it was.
Okay, I want to say something here. Why did Otakon name its different programming channels around its mascots? Because they had like channel Heroku and channel this and all that. And each one was like a different track, which a different theme.
Right.
But I had no idea if that meant educational or that meant panel or it was just random words.
Back and forth. Like, actually, when I was looking for the time of your panel, I was just like, oh, I'm going to have to click through each one. And of course, I did the standard going from left to right, so I got there quickly. But, what if you've been in the middle? And it would have been like going right all the way at the end. I would have been like, oh, for God's sake.
It was very weird.
Again,
I went to the schedule. When you popped open the schedule, it showed you what the name, whatever channel, like it showed you all the channels, and you hit the tab for the channel, and it would pull open the schedule. And the schedule would show you the time and the general name of what the panel part was with a drop-down arrow, and that would give you a little bit more explanation. But it didn't give you like a hot link to what was going on.
We had to go all the way back out.
Yeah, it's like I don't know honestly how I found the way to the broadcasting part, because I just was looking all around. I'm like, schedule, register. I'm like, what? I don't understand. How am I supposed to get here? Yeah, I mean, it was the blind hunting peck, and it's like I just found it. It's like I didn't know it was on Twitch. If you told me it was on Twitch, I would have gone to Twitch. That would have been easy. But I understand they had planned for something totally different this weekend.
Well, yeah,
totally different. So this was,
I just felt that they had enough time, enough resources to plan it properly, and I kind of felt that if you and that was the other thing. I felt like there was a lot of channels with not a lot in it. There was two like towards the end, some of the channels like Krabby and Lyra or whatever only had like 4 or 5 things in them, whereas Heroku had like all the panels, and then the next one had all the whatever it was. And I'm kind of like, well, just A, consolidate, and B, just if you're going to do it on one day, then pack it out with stuff that people are going to want to do. Like, so those panels really should have been an hour. It wouldn't have been as many.
This is what I don't understand.
It wouldn't have been a many, but you would have had quality, because I feel like I'm kind of brown nosing you a little bit here, Brent. But
thank you.
On your channel, or on your panel, when we looked at the chat, people were still like going, "Oh, hey, yeah, this. Oh, hey, yeah, that." And they had questions, and they were like interested, and they wanted to go further. Now, I've seen that particular panel before, so I know that there was more. And you couldn't. There's no way for you to get to it.
Yeah,
and I think that's a frustration in a lot of the other panels. Like,
I
found the anime physics guy fine, but there was a point where I was just like going, it hurts my head. Okay, Tenchi's an all-powerful being. Great. Okay.
I thought the anime physics was interesting. That towards the end of it, they had somebody, just a voice appears. It's like, we have a question, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
we have a question. I was like, all I'm seeing is just a screen at like so many meters per second squared, and such, like. The Great Kamehameha would have like 5.01 times 10 to the 8,835th joules of energy. And that I'm like, huh? And then this person's like, yes, we have a question. If, you could be a tree, what kind of tree would you be? No. You know what I mean? It's like, so somebody was in there moderating and asking questions that were coming in somewhere.
They only did that for the live ones or the live streaming ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one with the Zelda and the Japanese religion, it had the same thing. There was a moderator in there who was keeping track of the questions that were coming in through the chat, breaking in, so the guy could focus on the live chat as opposed to pre-recording then being able, the person who pre-recorded it, then being able to focus on chat.
And I know one of those entire channels was nothing but Goku and somebody else from Dragon Ball in like a Street Fighter. That's every time I clicked on the channel, that's all it was. It was just them side-scrolling fight.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah.
I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah. That's actually something else that annoyed me is that, on Twitch, there's a chat on the side and folks can chat on there. But for some reason, and this could just be, software settings, the embed on Otakon Online doesn't show any of that. So if you're just on the website, like you or JJ, the embed on the Otakon website just shows the stream. It doesn't show the chat. And that chat is running. And so, and that's where all those questions were coming from, is folks were posting things. And so I'm sure folks would have liked to have asked questions or to have engaged in that. But if you didn't click all the way through to twitch.tv, you couldn't see any of that chat.
And then what's worse is that if you had the unfortunately if it got the circle of death going and everything froze up, and if you made the mistake of refreshing, you lost all that chat.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And granted, that's a Twitch thing. That's a Twitch bug. I don't know why they do that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's well, and here's the other thing, and I'm gonna slightly speak out of turn. I don't know of any single panelist who didn't complain in their panel, it's just obliquely, about the 30-minute runtime.
How could you not?
Yeah.
How could you not?
Because
I was actually thinking, well, the panels that I do, there's no way. No way. No way. For me, it's impossible. You were able to break it, and other people were able to break it as well. But like for me, there was just no, when I do the history of the Tanakashima rifle, I'm going on for 40 minutes at least.
That's the thing. Is it,
I have to.
Right. Yeah. I had the advantage that I was going to do a brief history of, 60 years, and I just made it about 30 years. Like that,
Right.
But yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is
Why
an issue.
Did they give a rationale for
Nope.
30 minutes or?
Got nothing. I wish there was an explanation, because that's the most vexing part about this, is that none was given. That's why I was saying earlier they should have just went ahead and just let everybody have their hour.
Yeah.
Then
I was going to say, certainly, if you had let everybody have an hour, it could have easily gone for a second day then.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, if you're trying to cram everything in, I guess 30 does make sense. Because then for all your panelists, you can smash them into one day, and then you're like, done.
Yep.
It's like,
right, you're done, but then you're doing it from the perspective of, like, I mean, we're talking from the perspective of, the panelists. And one of the things that I was kind of getting annoyed with was, well, what about the people who are viewing it? You guys out there.
That's the thing.
Like watching us here talking tonight, when you're in there and you've only got 30 minutes, and at the end of it, okay, bye, see ya.
Yep.
You have no opportunity to ask questions. You have no opportunity to learn more. And that's the whole point of the panel, is for us to say, talk to you and say, here you go. And then have you guys come back at us and go, okay, what does this mean? Are you sure? Did you get that right?
Yeah.
It's like that back and forth that everybody wants and everybody needs, but you just did not get that at all.
And I'll be fair, like a lot of the panelists tried to be in chat while their panel was running. So if you could see chat, you could at least ask them a question, they could clarify. But that, it kind of sort of worked. There's also, there's also the problem that I did not expect to turn this into a rant. That, just so folks know,
it's an observational discussion.
Yes.
All the panelists were told that it was going to be 30 minutes 2 weeks ago. So we didn't know until our panels were accepted that they could only be 30 minutes. So yes, that is why all the panelists were complaining, is because I submitted a brief history of anime panel, and they said, thank you, yes, please do that, you only have 30 minutes. That's the concern, is, okay, I know what I'm going to be doing for the next 2 weeks, is rewriting my panel and re-recording it and redoing it all.
Can you imagine what I would have been doing? I would have been like, why?
Yeah.
Just put on some music. Do a little tap dance for about 20 minutes, and then sing for 10. You're done. That's it.
Yeah.
I've got 8 hours of
Oh, well.
presentation material, and you give me 30 minutes. I'm just going to sit here and whittle.
Well, you
Whittle
imagine,
Here we go. Look, here's a stick I whittled.
and you imagine the folks. Mike Toole had this problem. He does this panel on bootleg anime from South Korea, and so he's showing clips.
So funny.
It's a great panel, but he's showing clips. Those clips have a length, right? If you want to show off what this is like in this particular plot point, like you need to let that clip run. So he actually sped them up. Like that was the only way he could get, and even then he was cutting things. So all of those clips were like at double speed, so we could actually get through them.
What's that?
Yeah.
Don't ask.
I do have to say though, Yellow Batman.
Yes,
He's
Yellow
funny.
Batman.
Yellow Batman. You have to watch this. We have to find this for you to watch.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yellow Batman.
Yes, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
I just, is it really like everything is Batman? Just the uniform's yellow?
Yes.
So
And he has
bat
powers,
symbol,
and he has-
bat car, and everything else or
Oh
stuff?
no! He's a
No, he
superhero now.
doesn't need the part. He can fly.
He can fly. Yep.
He has
Oh.
strength.
Mhm.
When he hits you with his karate chop, your arm comes off.
Yes. That's a thing.
He can shoot lasers out of his fingertips.
Yeah.
He can take marvelous headshots
Yes, he
and
can.
be perfectly okay. He gets shot in the face, like from the clip I saw, he gets shot in the face like 5 times.
Yep. He's
The
fine.
lava
Wow.
room. And I'll just leave it at that. The lava room.
The lava
Wow.
room. Oh, the lava room. Oh.
It's all the Batman superhero you could ask for without any of the mortal
Yeah.
problems
And he
like
laughs.
dying and
The whole time. He laughs. The whole time. Yeah, literally.
Okay.
I just cut off your arm. I blew up your lair. I just killed you. Ha ha. And it's just like, he just laughs.
oh wow, the psychotic Batman.
Perfect yellow Batman. Yellow Batman.
Wow.
So the context for those wondering what the heck we're talking about, Yellow Batman was is our name for a character in a South Korean animated film series, I think, that came out in the 80s, when they were bootlegging everything. Just everything was bootlegged. It was Transformers versus Macross versus Gundams. It was fun. Oh yes. If you ever wanted to see like a Zagok fighting a Space Runaway Ideon fighting a Valkyrie, you can watch it in South Korea. It's interesting. Unfortunately, everything just immediately explodes.
I mean, was it like a plot to it, or is it just like random fighting things going on?
How do you
care?
define
It's yellow
plot?
Batman.
Yeah. Why? The Valkyrie's fighting a Space Runaway Idiot. That's the one I really want to like to see.
Stuff happens. I mean,
That's an understatement. I'm
there's,
sure.
there's a plot, thus. All plot, I'm just saying.
What's the plot?
Things occur.
Robots fighting. No, what's the plot? I just told you.
Yes.
Robots fighting. Oh, okay.
I mean, the plot of, Space Commander, I think, is that a group of kids playing baseball are attacked by aliens and then discover there is a combining robot in a nearby mountain volcano where they have to just recover a key that will unlock it so that then they can fly to the planet of the invading aliens and destroy it in the combining robot. Yeah, it's that kind of a thing. The robot is, I believe...
It sounds like something I'd write.
What's the Ironside from Transformers? I believe that is the robot that they fly in. It is just the mecha design for Ironside that they have to climb inside.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a transformer. It's really, really interesting. I have to. Yeah. Once we're all over, I will pull up my Korean animation folder, and show you guys some of this stuff. It's a riot.
It sounds like something. All right.
It's something. So the
I
context,
still want to see Yobi, which apparently is not a ripoff.
No,
Yobi's
fantastic.
Still want to see that.
So what happened basically was that Korean animation was a thing. Like, they did some amazing animation in the 60s, and then stuff happened in Korea. I don't know if you knew. Then
Economic revolution.
Yeah.
The rise of the South Korean miracle wonder.
And for some reason they didn't like Japan very much. And so Japanese. Yeah. So Japanese stuff was verboten until the early 80s, like late 70s, early 80s, and they kind of lifted those restrictions. Anime flooded the market, and there was just no market for any South Korean stuff, animated stuff at all. It was just gone. And so
decimated their domestic market.
Done. And so they were like, okay, well, this anime stuff is popular. Let's do that. So they started just literally going. You've seen Otaku no Video, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You know the segment of the guy in the bike outfit who like sneaks into anime studios and grabs
Right. Yes,
character designs,
sells.
sells. That's South Korea. Like, that's what South Korean companies would do. They would hire those guys to just literally walk in and grab character designs off and send them to South Korea, and they would just make things like bootleg Gundam. So Char in a black outfit, fighting Sailor Mass, I think, is one of the villains. It's weird. It's just like completely the character designs recolored, just made as a thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's remarkable. But on that note, I think that is I think the news. It's a lot of news.
News everywhere, all over everything.
Yes. I might cut that a little short this time. No particular. The only anime history items this week were the first Otakon, which was fun. That was back in 94. July 29th, 94.
1898.
Yeah, exactly. Seems like it. And then
Remember the Maid is a little more well known, but second only to Remember the Otakon.
Exactly. Yes. And Kiki's Delivery Service premiered in Japan in July 29th, 1989.
Oh.
So
Nice.
that's cute. But not particularly, and I would note Kiki's Delivery Service because it was really the first, I don't want to say successful Studio Ghibli film, but that was the one where they got a lot of like merchandising sales, where they kind of got on the map as a consistently producing movie studio.
Okay.
So like Nausicaa came out, it was a thing. Totoro came out, it was a thing. Grave came out, and it was a thing. But because Miyazaki is a dirty hippie communist, he I kid. He really avoided merchandising until Kiki came along, and they were like, okay, let's make money off of this, and it really it got there.
Because you don't learn anything from George Lucas about merchandising.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Kiki's also had one of the most brilliant advertising campaigns I've ever seen. If you go on the DVDs, they show the commercials for Kiki's, and they had 2 TV commercials. And one of them shows Kiki running around town, doing all of her deliveries and so forth. And the dialogue is, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'm Kiki. I moved to the new town, and everything's great. Love you lots. Bye." The other ad is Kiki slouched over in the bakery, looking out the window. And the dialogue is, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I've moved to the big city. Everything's great. Love, Kiki." And that's the ad.
Interesting.
And so sometimes you see one, sometimes you see the other. And you wonder, what is this movie? Right?
Yeah, really. giving you a weird tone from one versus the other. Wow, that's really interesting.
It was brilliant.
Speaking of pills, that you walk into the movie going, do I take the Xanax or do I not?
Am I going to be crying or am I going to have a toothache from the sweetness?
Very interesting. Did Kiki have to change a couple things for international level? Not quite. So Kiki actually had an interesting experience. I actually just read this in the book by Steve Alpert. When Ghibli was licensed by Disney and brought over, they had the famous no cuts policy and no changes policy. But Disney didn't abide by that for Kiki. They did Kiki first, and Alpert talks about going in to watch the recording for Kiki because it had been going in and seeing all these changes to Kiki, and he was like, you're legally not allowed to do that. And the person directing that, who remained nameless, literally turned to him and said, we're not changing anything. And he said, I'm listening to new lines of dialogue that you're dubbing right now. They're not new. They're part of the script. Okay. Which led to this whole conversation. And then eventually it got to where they were like, he showed them that they had changed things and they had no recourse but to release it because all the work had already been done. They already made all the changes. So they promised to not do that on any of the other movies. But they made a whole bunch of changes to Kiki's.
I thought you were going to talk about how he sent the katana.
The katana, yes. Yeah, so that whole story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was part of that whole thing. I mean, that was it was not a response to Kiki's, but it was around that time all that happened. But yeah, that was kind of a mistake on everyone's part and like that person was fired, that director for doing that on Kiki's, because that was not the plan, But
how significantly did they screw it up?
So they added a pop song to a sequence that had no music. They added so when Kiki's flying,
right.
And she turns on the radio and it starts playing a song. That's not in the original. There's another song playing, but it's a completely different song. And they just had to add something new. They added a few things to just kind of sweeten up a few of the moments. Nothing crazy. The big change was Gigi talks at the end. So you hear him saying, hey, Kiki, as he's jumping up to her. And in the original, he does not talk at all because they wanted to leave open the question of whether she's actually able to talk to Gigi again. That is supposed to be an open question at the end as to how much she has repaired that. And they wanted to leave it open, but they added that in. And granted, there's no dialogue between the two, so it's still open, but that wasn't the intent. And I think I've read of a few other things where you can kind of argue back and forth of, well, that's, it's a classic translation thing of, okay, that's not maybe how I'd translate it, but I don't think that's really changing the story,
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
Kiki's now a 12-year-old boy.
Right, exactly. It's changing a little bit.
No.
Here and there.
No.
That's not right. No.
Gigi is going to be a bricklayer for Patterson, New Jersey. What? No.
Yeah. What's
wrong with you people?
It's odd.
We represent the Hoover Corporation. Can Kiki fly a vacuum?
Exactly.
No. We don't need notes. Get out.
Pretty much. That Albert book is revealing. Cool. All right. I think that'll be it for the stream for tonight. Thank you all so much for being here. But before we leave, we have a question. We always have a question.
What did we learn?
What did we learn on the show tonight, Brent? We gotta know that. What did we learn tonight, everyone? I know I learned that real estate's not that scary. What did you all learn tonight?
I learned that given the right incentive, even making a dub for a bug movie that kills people is can be very profitable.
Yes.
And I learned, and I learned that proper planning always gives good results. Improper planning never gives good results.
Yep.
Yeah.
I learned that the great diversity of streaming services has shuffled a lot of shows off between different services, sometimes without really very much advance notice, which again, proper planning, proper informing of your client base really goes a long way to making sure people don't get very angry and leave your services. So,
yep,
that is life.
Yep.
There will be more anime.
Yeah. There we go. I think it's a good place to end it. Thank you all so much. This has been great. Have a good one. Till
See
next time.
y'all. Thank you.
Watch more anime.
Bye.
Whoops, wait. There we go. That goes there. That goes there. And then the thing happens. Wait a second. Hold on. Something's wrong. Okay.